Well, welcome everybody to today's edition of Tech It Out with Vista. Today, we're going to be learning all about the Google Pixel 8. And I know some of you maybe were surprised and were looking forward to the Pixel 9 because I accidentally had that in part of the notes. I had Pixel 8 and Pixel 9. So, as far as I know, there is no Pixel 9 right now. So, we'll be talking about the Pixel 8 today. And with us today is Morgan Pimentel and Ryan Lynn. They are both assistive technology specialists with Vista Center, and they will both be telling us all about the Google Pixel 8. So go ahead and take it away, guys.
Hi, good morning. Go ahead, Morgan.
Oh,
We're
no.
excited to be here.
Yes, very excited to be here. Thank you for that warm introduction. So Ryan and I will be discussing the Google Pixel 8. I have a Google Pixel 8 Pro and here with me today, and I will be going over TalkBack. TalkBack is basically the voiceover equivalent. It is the screen reader on Android phones, and it's available on not just Google Pixels, but Samsung and Motorola's and a whole bunch of other Android phones. That is the screen reader you will be using if you need speech feedback and cannot see the screen. So that's the fun stuff I'm going to be getting into today. Ryan?
So I'm going to be, I also have a Google Pixel, an 8 Pro, and I'm going to be going over the low vision accessibility settings. Some blind users also can use some of them. And I'm also going to be going over Google Lookout a little bit. So, Morgan, why don't you talk about TalkBack first, and then I'll go ahead and go into the low vision settings and features.
Okay, great. So Google TalkBack is very similar to VoiceOver in a lot of ways. The way you navigate around the screen, generally speaking, for TalkBack, you flick left or flick right with one finger. You can double tap with one finger to open apps, press buttons, all of those things. You can even take two fingers and tap twice on the screen to answer and end phone calls, just like you can with VoiceOver. However, there are a few difficulties. Sorry, there are a few differences. So I'm going to get my Android out and just show you a couple things. Okay, so for those who can see it, this is my Google Pixel 8 Pro. It is a fairly large screen, and then I have this case on the back of it. What I like about the Google phones is where the camera is situated, because there's a long bar on the back of it that is where the camera is. And for those who can't see, I'm taking my finger and I'm going across where the bar is on the back of the phone. It's at the top. So that's kind of nice. So let me open my phone. Okay, let me slow down my speech rate real fast so everybody can hear it. Okay, 1 second. I'm just trying to turn up my volume. I apologize.
Fine. Messages home.
Okay, fantastic.
Harry Svensson is talking. Home. Google search. Messages has one notification.
Great.
Pimentel. Comment. Shortcuts.
Okay.
You sign in on Windows. Your Google account was.
You know what? Actually, Ryan, I'm so sorry to change this. Would you be able to go over the low vision features first, and then I will move into TalkBack? My phone is about to give a downpour of notifications. That's
Yeah,
get in my way.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll
Thank
go ahead
you.
and mute you.
I'm going to mute.
All right, perfect. Thanks, everyone. And And thanks, Morgan, for kind of getting that prepared. So I am an Android user personally. I think for the low vision settings, for myself and everybody that's low vision, has their own preferences and needs. And so for me, I have found that there's more customizable settings that help with my needs. And let me go ahead and mute this person. And what I have found is that I have only found the most customization in Samsung until today. I mean, until the Pixel 8 pretty much. And so the Pixel 8 I have found is absolutely amazing with its customizable features. So it has a lot of the same titles, such as like contrast or themes or larger fonts or displays, but it goes into much more of an array of themes and an array of contrasts other than the like smart invert or just the invert of colors, you know, black to white and blue to yellow and so on. And it has so many variations because not everyone that has vision and has low vision sees or uses their eyes the same way, you know? And so it's wonderful that it can really be customized to the person's needs specifically. Let me pull up my notes here. So one of the things about the appearances that I really like is that you can schedule themes. So I like this. So I prefer dark theme. I have macular degeneration. And so light or brightness is really difficult for me. And so I really like the dark theme. Now that's very common in a lot of phones nowadays, but the way that the Pixel has been able to customize the type of dark theme is really wonderful, along with the fact that you can schedule. So let's say during the day, I actually do need a brighter screen to combat the light around me. And at night, I need a darker screen. Well, I can actually time that to where it'll change on its own. And I don't have to go into settings and then switch, you know, and do all that. So that's really easy. You know, at 7 o'clock, it'll switch to dark theme and I can continue on with my evening without being further disrupted by the bright light that's about to pierce my eyes. So I really do enjoy that. The next thing in regards to kind of the display and appearance is the ability to adjust the font and the display size. So this is the biggest I've been able to see. Now the Pixel 8 Pro's screen is bigger. It is it's just comparable to an iPhone Pro. So it's not huge, but the way that they've been able to design the ability to magnify the display without having things run into each other or sentences overlapping each other or even icons overlapping each other, it's able to spread things out. And that is really, really nice. There are a few areas as I've used the phone where I have found there isn't quite enough screen real estate, if you will, in order for there to be clarity on, let's say, there's a button and a whole sentence is trying to be filled in this one button. So sometimes that is an issue, but that's common on all screens that I have found, even my computer and so forth. There's only so much space, so many words can fit in. So with this, though, they've been able to conquer most of the other issues regarding that than even the Samsung. And also the iPhone as well. The iPhone and its zoom magnification, kind of larger display settings. The font as well. is really, really nice. When I have the phone off, or if I just turn it on where it's still in its locked screen, either one, I can choose to have the clock on. And for me, the clock is about 3 inches by 2 inches wide on the phone. Excuse me, it takes up a third of the phone already. And I think that that's really wonderful. It's not a funky kind of font or anything like that, although I can choose those, but instead it's just a bold digital clock that I can really see. And especially if my phone is on the timer to where it changes to like a dark theme, I can leave my phone on the table and it can just show me the time as I pass by. And so I can see it from, standing, and it's laying down on the table. So that's actually really something that I have found that's very wonderful, that is different, that kind of sets aside with other phones. Other phones have some of the same things, but it's different. It is more, they've just put more thought into making this work better instead of having it, let's just throw this in together. So it's just available, if that makes sense. So let's see. So there's also adaptive brightness. Other phones have this as well. But it's really nice that this one also has an extra dimmable button. So again, if you're trying to save battery and you're using TalkBack, you can, instead of having like a curtain on or the turning off the screen, what you can do is you can put on dim and then super dim. And so what that does is that will automatically dim the screen lower to the default dim, which is really nice. And especially for me, like if I don't have my contacts in, I have the phone really just centimeters away, or if not touching my nose. And so I can work with that much darker screen, especially if it's dark in the room. Then if it's just normal brightness and it's that close to my eye, after a few minutes, it's actually really kind of painful. And so it's really nice to be able to have that as well. The information, again, we already talked about on the locked and the home screen, that wonderful clock size. You can also choose different contrasts and colors for that as well, which is really helpful. The keyboard, and then this is the last part that I have in regards to just the display, is you have the ability to change the keyboard style, and this is the biggest I've ever seen. So even on my Samsung Z Fold 5, which is basically a phone that flips open into a mini tablet. That's my personal phone that I use every day. The keyboard that I have that's available on the Pixel 8 is larger than that. And so it actually goes up more than half of this screen, where there is ample room for even people with larger fingers, if they are touch typing, or if they're using their finger to touch instead or type instead of using the screen reader or dictating, they're able to locate those larger buttons fairly easily. And so I really, really like that. You can change the style and the font size and style on there as well, along with a theme. So if you do see better with a white with blue, or there's the yellow with blue, or black on white, or vice versa, you have that ability to change that as well. So that's the customizable settings for the screen itself. Kind of getting into the accessibility settings. So Apple has this, iPhones have this, Samsungs have this. I'm not sure. I'm not 100% sure. I think like LG has it as well, and I imagine some of the other phones. But it's the accessibility shortcut button. So with this one, I just wanted to talk about it just to provide that information. Let me mute that person. Okay. Let me get back to my notes here. Okay, so you can Android did this update on the last update where you can have either the buttons that are on the side, so they're just virtual buttons. I'm not talking about the side buttons, but virtual buttons on the side of the screen. So you can have those being the accessible shortcut buttons. Or what's wonderful now is you can do gestures. You can take a 2-finger swipe from the bottom and bring those up. One of the things that I don't like with the buttons is yes, they are movable and you can move them around and manipulate them in order to see things on the screen. But especially if I have the larger icons on or the larger buttons on there so I can locate them easier, they're still in the way. You know, I'm gonna have to like move them around quite a bit. And so I like that there's this ability to do that 2-finger swipe from the bottom in order to access the accessibility shortcut. So that's really wonderful that Android had brought out. I believe it was the last update. Let's see, some of the things for that I would use for the shortcut, and again, it's customizable for, I know that some of our friends here and some of the other clients and so forth that we know have not only visual disabilities, but some of them have hearing disabilities or dexterity difficulties and so forth. And it has those abilities. The phone and accessibility shortcut has those abilities to add those features to the shortcut itself, which is helpful. For me, I would use the magnifier, and that is not the magnifier as in using the camera to see, let's say, a document, but instead, and I'll talk more about the magnifier next, but it's to magnify what's on the screen, which is nice. And then the other one that I use for the shortcut is the select to speak, which I'll speak about after the magnifier. So for the accessibility buttons, it's become much easier, and I really enjoy the fact that, again, those large buttons just aren't on the screen kind of obnoxiously in my way. So that's pretty cool. All right, so the magnifier, when it's enabled, what's really nice about this is, well, there's two kinds. So we'll talk about the magnifier using it as the camera, as basically using your phone as a handheld video magnifier, such as like, I think Corey from North State has talked about like the Clover 6, and there are other like the Looky Loo, I think it's called, and so forth, just these handheld. And so with the size of the screen, using this as a handheld video magnifier actually is really helpful, especially because it's similar to size as the standard handheld video magnifier. So that's really helpful as well. What's neat about the magnifier that I have not yet seen in other phones is the ability to change the contrast of what is being shown. So I can be looking at, let's say, it's just a PG&E bill, but instead of it being black lettering on a white background, I can change that contrast. And so I can change the contrast to something that will better suit my needs and make it more accessible. So for me, again, it's that dark background with a light lettering. So black on white, white on black. But there's the ability to do so many others. There was and for me, I'm like, so there's blue on red, there was the yellow on blue, white on blue, a red on black, green on black, and so forth. So there were really, really ample options to customize just that itself. Another thing that was really neat was that it has the ability to give like image description, and it is still in I think it's a little past beta testing, I believe, but it's still not 100%. I tried it yesterday, just to see if there were any more updates or anything to it, and it still was, I could tell, a work in progress. But what's neat is it's an option available that I know that they're working on. And so what that is I can take a picture of, let's say it's even a meme on a screen or something like that, and it has a picture of, I don't know, the Dos Equis guy or something, and then it has some sort of caption at the bottom. And so it will actually identify that picture, and say, older distinguished gentleman, saying something, funny. And then it would just tell me what it would say. And so I'd be able to have that image description, which is really neat, and that the magnifier provides. The other thing is, and let me get into my settings that I really liked. Sorry about this. So for the magnifier, and they're both called the same, but the magnifier for magnifying what's visible on the screen is also really nice. I, again, have this as an accessibility shortcut. And so it's a pinch to zoom, to bring things larger or smaller, reducing the size or maximizing it. And it actually can get maximized to where one full capital letter, depending on the size, can take up half of the screen. And so, and with the clarity that it still provides. And so with that, I find it really helpful to zoom in on a paragraph or a sentence, or let's say even a portion or a part of a picture that I'm struggling to see, that I want to see maybe more of a facial expression or something like that, where it has this really gentle transformation of zooming in instead of this kind of step taking, kind of choppy transition. And so I really enjoy that. One other option that is really helpful is the quick magnifier or magnification. And so let's say that I just want to briefly use the magnifier. I can use the accessibility shortcut, so tapping that button, and then I can just touch the area and hold, and then whatever my finger is over, that's what's going to be magnified. So that's really helpful for me to just drag my finger around and identify exactly and pinpoint exactly where I want magnified. So that's something that's really neat as well. The last thing that I'll talk about in regards to the accessibility settings is the select to speak. This one is really neat as well. And so let me turn off my magnifier. So this one, let me make sure my volume is up. And I'm hoping I'm not sharing my sound, so I'm hoping that you'll be able to pick it up.
No text found at that location.
So let me go ahead and, is that too loud or is that okay?
I think that's
I'll
okay.
try it there. Okay, so there are a couple options that you can utilize for this, which is helpful. So you can also use this for identifying text on an image as well. You can take a picture and try and focus on where the text is, and then it can read and identify it for you. Let me start this. So I'm going to get to magnifier. And then how I can do this is I can tap a specific area of the phone that I want read. Maybe it's just a word or a specific sentence, or I can identify a paragraph or another area of the phone that I'm unsure of what's there. I can actually drag my finger on how far I want it to read and how much information I want it to read. So for example,
select to speak. Tap a feature to start using it.
Yep.
Select to speak. Tap a feature to start using it. Use the camera and controls specifically designed to support various visual preferences to see small print in low light or in large distance signs.
So that's really cool. So, for example, if there's, and again, I'm not saying to utilize this, if you're, because I don't want to be held liable for this, but you could at a safe location, identify street signs potentially, which is something that I super struggle with. And if I'm able to find the light, what I can do is potentially take a picture of the area and then highlight the page, or if I can highlight the area of the sign, it'll tell me what it states. And so that's really helpful and something that other phones I have not seen do at all. And so if you want it to read the whole page, you can just kind of tap that top left corner, or you can hit a play button that appears on the bottom and it'll read the whole page for you, which is really nice. You can change the pitch and the tone and the voice as well. So some really like the more robotic, and some individuals really like that more natural sounding voice, which is nice. Let's see. So the last two things, and then
Hey
again,
Ryan, do you mind if I interrupt?
yeah, please.
I do want to mention that when it comes to zoom and magnifier on the Androids, there's actually a big difference, because I noticed that with the magnifier on Pixels, it actually magnifies where you want it to magnify. So if you like were to pinch zoom at a certain spot, it really goes into that spot. Versus zoom on iPhone 8, you would end up at a different spot, and it's kind of difficult. But yeah, just wanted to comment on that.
Yeah, thank you, Roberto. That's actually a note that I missed. So you can, with the magnifier, the zoom feature, what you can do is have something, I don't know what it exactly is called. They just called it, I'll find out exactly what it's called, because I was noticing it that it was called something a little bit different, but on iOS and on PC and on well, the iPhone specifically or iPad, it's called the lens. And so that acts more like a magnifier glass, like a physical magnifying glass, where you would kind of drag around the screen and that would highlight a specific area. Or you can have it as a full screen. And so what's different about, and kind of retouching on what Roberto was mentioning, is that this doesn't just have like a lens where it comes up with a little box where something is around. When you use the short or magnification for just even temporary magnification, you can really pinpoint where you want magnified, and it's really easy. It's really easy to get the information that you're looking for. Much easier to access it, I'll say. It is harder that I have found on the other devices, because it does throw you off into different areas. And for me, in my experience, it does make it more kind of, again, choppy, trying to locate what I actually want. One last thing about the magnifier is that it can follow where you're typing. So if you have it magnified where it's taking up, maybe the text field is taking up, or even the keyboard is taking up quite a bit of the screen, you can have the magnification follow where you're what you're inputting, which that's something that the magnifying option does on my PC, but I've not yet seen that in a phone. And so that is a really helpful tool, because I access that and utilize that all the time. And so that's something that's really, really neat. Thanks, Roberto, for that information. It's important. I wanted to talk a little bit about, well, before I get into these two apps, because they are apps more so. I want to make sure that I give that time for more game. And then I can, if we do have the time, I'll go into a little bit of the Google Assistant, which a lot of us are familiar, and then we'll just kind of go over specific for the Pixel phone, and then also the Google Lookout app. And so for now, I'll turn it back to Morgan just to make sure that we continue covering the Pixel itself. Sorry, Morgan, I didn't even give you any notice.
That's okay, thanks. No problem. Okay. So, where was I? My number Jason. Thank you so much, everybody, for bearing with me on that. My phone, I thought this is not my primary phone, so I hadn't been using it, and I turned it on earlier, and I thought it ran through all the notifications it needed, but apparently not. So thank you for bearing with me. Like I'd previously mentioned, today we're going to be going over a little bit of talkback. I'm mostly going to be covering the differences of how it is different to voiceover, as like I've said before, there are some similarities, and I could talk for hours on how you accomplish everything, and very unfortunately, we don't have that kind of time. So I'm just going to be going over some key points. So the first thing I want to talk about is one of the most important. How do you turn on and off talkback? On an iPhone, you can press the power button if you have an iPhone 10 or up. Press it 3 times and it will turn on and off voiceover as a shortcut, which is very handy. On an Android, however, you can you can press the volume up and volume down buttons together. Maybe. Hang on.
10:47
here we go.
No sir.
And as you heard, I just turned it off and it actually played me a little piano tone, which told me this is now off. I'm going to press the volume buttons again. There we go. And I turned it on. For those who have vision, some of you might have seen me hit the power button a couple times, and that is because my phone, the screen turned off, and so when the screen is off, talkback won't turn on or off, no matter what you do. So that is how you turn on and off talkback. I actually kind of like it, though for people who have dexterity issues, I will say, you know, if you're just trying to quickly turn on your screen reader, it can be a little bit of a challenge. I have small hands and I have dexterity issues. So I don't have large enough fingers or the dexterity to just do this one-handed. I need to use 2 fingers at the same time to utilize that shortcut. Anyways, the next thing I wanted to mention isn't talkback specific, but it is Pixel specific and Android in general. A lot of Android phones, some support like face recognition, Face ID to unlock your phone. But with Android, Google Pixel, you have a Touch ID, which is really, really nice. And this is actually digitally on the phone, so there's no physical button here. But if I turn on my phone, I'm going to turn this up a little bit.
Prime Media Volume Control, Friday, July 12th.
Can everybody hear that?
Accessibility volume set to 50%.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So I'm going to take my thumb and tap kind of the bottom of the screen in the middle a little bit. I'm just put my finger on it.
Device locked. Pin area 7, 6, 1.
Hang on a second.
Screen off. 10. Device locked. Pin area box 6, 1, 1, 9, 2, 2, 0, 0, 0. Pin area.
Let's see.
Home.
Now it's going to work. If your phone has been turned off and you turn it on, you won't be able to use that feature. So I think that's what's happening in my case. Let's see.
Device home. Device unlocked. Yep. Home.
So I locked my phone again. I just tapped the kind of bottom middle of the screen. You briefly heard it say which meant it was trying to say touch sensor, and automatically it unlocked just with my fingerprint. That is a very accessible process to set up. TalkBack reads you all instructions, so that's nice. So now we're on my home screen. One thing I really, really like about TalkBack and Android is that the icons are much larger. So even with TalkBack, you can explore the screen. You don't have to flick everywhere. So for example, I know that I have YouTube on the second line of my apps in the first the first section. So it's the second row, first icon from the left. So since I know that orientation, I can just tap
YouTube.
the middle left, the left hand side of my screen towards the middle, and it hit YouTube right away. I know that Be My Eyes I have in the top left-hand corner, as that is an app I use all the time.
Be My Eyes.
So I can just tap the top left-hand corner and it hits YouTube. I'm not swiping or flicking or doing anything like that. I'm literally just tapping different portions of the screen once with one finger, and it's announcing all of the apps.
Home. Messages.
You can find my messages that way, which is in my dock at the bottom, second app in. So that's really handy. The other way that Android or TalkBack is different than iOS, which I appreciate, is the way you use the rotor. They don't have a rotor. They with the dial where you take two fingers and you twist clockwise or counterclockwise. They instead use kind of a menu system. So you take three fingers and you can swipe up or down.
Characters, words, lines, paragraphs, headings, controls, links, landmarks, windows, speech rate, punctuation, actions, characters.
And you can go through your options, whether if you're reading a document, if you want to read it by word, if you're having difficulties, you need to find something. If you can also read by paragraphs, you can navigate links this way. And the way you do that, once you find the setting you want, is the same way you would do it on the iPhone, which is you take one finger and you swipe up and down.
Capital M, E, S, S, A, G, E, S.
So I just did that. I swiped down and it read me messages letter by letter, because that's what I have it focused on right now. I also can swipe up.
S, E, G, A, S.
And it'll take me backwards. The other way that Android is a little different or TalkBack is a little different, is it has a lot of what we call L gestures. So these are different gestures that you use to get into different menus to access different settings. One of the most common is to swipe right and down on the screen to get to your notification center. In the notification center, this is also where you can find your quick actions for airplane mode, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, etc. So we're going to do that real fast.
Notification shade. Off. Airplane mode. Switch.
So it said notification shade, which told me that I brought up my notifications. However, I already know that I don't have any notifications.
Expanded Instagram.
Oh, never mind. I do. They must have came in silently.
Files.
Okay.
Window home. Home.
So, but that is how you would get to your notification center. The other commonly used gesture is to swipe down and then right.
TalkBack menu. Actions.
And this is the TalkBack menu. This is how you get to a lot of different features. So you can get to screen curtain here. You can get to your TalkBack settings menu here. You can get to, let's see, you can read from next item in here. If you're reading a web page.
Copy last spoken phrase.
You can copy last spoken phrase. That is the equivalent of doing a 3-finger quadruple tap on the iPhone if you're reading something and you want the entire phrase to be copied to your clipboard. So that way you don't have to do, line by line or anything like that. The other thing that I wanted to mention is and I don't recall if Ryan, if you mentioned this, so I apologize if you already have, but with TalkBack, this is also accessible. You can, the way you access all your apps is you can take 2 fingers with TalkBack and you can swipe up from the bottom of the screen on your home screen.
Recent apps. Home. Files.
Oops, hang on.
Drive. App suggestions. Play Store.
There we go. So I swiped up with 2 fingers from the bottom of the screen and it brought up my apps.
Gmail has 5 notifications. WhatsApp. Facebook. Google App button. Hub Files.
Now the other thing is there's so many customizations that you can do for the gestures. These are the ones that I have set. By default, when you get an Android, a lot of times you can take 3 fingers and tap once on the screen to also get to the TalkBack menu, as well as that L gesture that we talked about. I, however, only get to it by the swiping down and to the right because I have a 3-finger single tap set to always bring up my Braille keyboard in order to type in Braille on my screen, as that is what I'm most fast at when typing. So there's that for some of those features for TalkBack. Let's see, I'm trying to think if there's anything I'm missing here. I think those are some of the key, some of the largest differences, I would say. There are additional benefits to Android, like, for example, if you have a Google Pixel, you can actually have Google Gemini now, which is kind of like the enhanced version of Google Assistant, screen your calls for scam calls. That is very beneficial and has saved me hours. Unfortunately, that is not part of this demonstration today in terms of practical sense because I don't have a SIM card in this phone. But if you're interested, please let me know and I will see what I can do about perhaps getting you a demo of that and Google Gemini in future. So that's some big things of Google TalkBack. Ryan?
Thank you. Yeah. So thanks, Morgan, for that. I have found that TalkBack for such a long time. I very much so was a voiceover preferred person, and the more that I have worked with the Pixel and even my Samsung using TalkBack, and as they have continued to work on it, the more I really, really enjoy TalkBack equally as voiceover.
They're very they're very, very similar. And I always tell a lot of, people, if they come to me and ask me, which one do you like better? For me personally, it really depends on what I'm doing and what is, like, I'll give everybody a prime example. I had an issue with, I apologize, 1 second. Sorry about that. Can everybody still hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great. I was running into a big issue with TalkBack a while ago with a primary app I use all the time regarding accessibility. It was really just getting in the way of my productivity. So I went back to my iPhone because that app for the time being is currently more accessible with the screen reader. But in time, that will be fixed on Android and I might go back. If you only have one phone, however, I think it boils down to a lot of things. It boils down to preference. Some Androids nowadays can be a little easier to obtain price-wise, and an ecosystem as well. What are you comfortable with? What fits your needs the best? But I think both are great, and I think both are getting to where it used to be where iPhone was the top. iPhone was the most accessible. iPhone was the one to get if you were blind or low vision. And nowadays, it's more of an equal playing field.
Yeah, I agree. So the other thing that I wanted to talk about was the Google Assistant. So most of us, I'm sure, are fairly knowledgeable, or at least have some experience of either hearing about or actually utilizing the Google Assistant. But I did want to just kind of refresh people's memory, and or for those that might not know as much about the Google Assistant. So it's the AI that I use every day personally. There is one or two things in my house where I actually have the A lady hooked up just because that object isn't compatible with Google Assistant yet. But if it was, then 100% of my items or like smart devices would be hooked up to the Google Assistant. So just specifically with the phone itself, most Androids, I think to my knowledge, all Androids, but also you can download the app. You can have the Google Assistant already on their phone, and they can program it. To customize it, you can sign into your Google account. But keeping in mind, the Google Assistant obviously is a Google product, and we're also talking about the Google Pixel. So just as Morgan was talking about having that same kind of operating system, it's really, really helpful, and it works really, really well with having both those in the same ecosystem. And so the Google Assistant can open the apps. You, of course, can Google subjects or information trying to obtain. You can make calls, send texts and emails. You can ask to play music, general, from specific apps as well. You can ask to get directions or how far something is, or I'm trying to obtain a phone number for a company or business or so forth. So those are just some of the things that it can do. There's so much more, but I do want to just make sure that people have that same knowledge, that there is that same ability as what Siri can do. They are different. Sometimes one will be better than one thing than the other. But I have found that the Google Assistant is really, really helpful, and I use it probably more than I should.
Ryan?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just going to make a small comment here. For those who are using TalkBack, I do want to make it very clear that if you are using Google Assistant to say, look something up, let's say you mentioned, I don't know, find me a recipe for spaghetti. On the phone specifically, it will say, okay, here's a recipe for spaghetti. But you have to use TalkBack and explore to that recipe. Sometimes you might have to click on a link. It's not going to just read it out to you as it would on a smart speaker.
Right. That is a key point. And then Morgan, asking you a question, knowing that you're even more knowledgeable about TalkBack. I know that early on, Google Assistant and TalkBack were not good together. Has that improved at all?
I would say with regular Google Assistant, yes, it's not bad nowadays. However, if you were using the advanced assistant, Gemini, that's how I have it set up on my phone right now. It's so. Sometimes it works. It's a little slow though. But for regular, just general Google Assistant, it's not. I would say so.
Very cool. So the last thing to kind of talk to you about specific is again kind of staying in that same Google ecosystem is the Google Lookout app. It's very similar to like the Envision app or Seeing AI and several of those other forums. This one particularly I enjoy. It seems very for me compatible when I'm using TalkBack. Where it lists different options in or different settings, different options in a list. And so it's easy to navigate that for me. What Google Lookout does is it uses your rear-facing camera. It can read text, find objects. It can explore the world around you. It can narrate documents. One of the options that I use most, let me pull it up here, is the image.
Computer keyboard.
And so what this does is this will just it's kind of a live feed. And so what this does is anything that it's kind of seeing around, it'll state. And you can also freeze frame it or take a picture of it and focus in on text as well. And then it'll identify that. It is in its beta testing, but you can still utilize it in the app, and I have found that it's really helpful. So just for some of the things that's around my office, let's see how it does.
Laptop. Mouse. Computer monitor. Microphone. Heater. Computer keyboard. Laptop. Mouse. Remote control.
So
Computer monitor.
those are all really helpful items.
Filing cabinet. Filing cabinet. Door. Filing cabinet.
So that's really cool. I have a filing cabinet in one
In this
area,
picture, we can see a surface, and on it we can
and then the second is I have the door next to it. So it identified the filing cabinet and it identified the door. The other, and then if you take a freeze frame, then let me play it. It started playing it. Let's see.
can see a blur image.
Let me try this again.
Filing cabinet.
Okay, it's analyzing it.
In this picture, we can see the door and hanger on it, and in the bottom there is a chair, plants, box, and on the right side there are some boxes, and in the bottom left corner there is a chair. Text.
So that's something that's really cool, where it identified bottom left-hand side, there's boxes. That's really helpful for me to know that there are boxes over there somewhere, and they're going to be on my left-hand side if I head towards that direction. The next thing that it says, it's going to say
Text. Sensi. 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 Sensi.
it's going to repeat that because I have probably 12 boxes that say Cincy on it, and they're all next to the filing cabinet. So even though it's repeating all those words, it's actually very accurate, and it's caught all those boxes. And so that's something that's really helpful. That I use a lot is the image description, and it's just much more than what it states and what I'm used to, what an image description is. And I also do enjoy that it's kind of in this live view to where I don't have to just take a picture of something and then go through the process of it, analyzing the picture and then giving me, but instead it's just giving me that live feedback right away. And so that's something that I really enjoy. Again, you can use it for taking photos, taking photos of a document, and it'll read the document to you, similar to Seeing AI. It can identify colors decently, probably just about as decently as most of the other devices and technology that's out there. It continues to get better, but sometimes if you're wearing like a dark blue shirt, it'll still say black or gray, or sometimes even white, because it'll pick up the light in the room instead, and then it'll invert the color. So even if it's a dark colored shirt, it can actually invert the color and say something like a white or a light gray. It can also do currency, which is really helpful as well, especially I know that most of us, I know that culture-wise, we're kind of stepping away from physical dollars and bills, but it is helpful to have the ability to identify your currency, especially if you're giving money and or receiving change, making sure that you're receiving the correct amount as well. So, and of course it is Bluetooth compatible, so you can use your earbuds or headphones to have that kind of privacy or to not bother anyone else, which is helpful as well. And Google has their own earbuds, and so if you did want to stay in that same kind of ecosystem, they've got anything that you would need, including a watch and all these other things. So I think as of that, that's all that I have in regards to the Pixel. There's so much more, and it really is. I would just say I'm so impressed with the 8. The previous models are fantastic as well, but both Morgan and I have been part of studies at Google to help. Um, uh, they're wanting to be the best for our community. You know, they're doing their research, they're bringing in people that are struggling with these day-to-day challenges that we come up with, and they're trying to find answers and support us with technology. And so I can really start to see that within what they've done with the Pixel 8. And I just can't wait till, the next device comes out, because it's just going to continue to get better. So, Morgan, did you have anything else to add? And if not, then we can just kind of begin with questions.
Yes, I had one quick thing to add for the Google Assistant. I apologize, 1 second. Sorry. So for the Google Assistant, the last cool feature that I wanted to mention that you can do with it is if you are, let's say you're on an article. Again, let's use a recipe as an example. This is a different way. You would have to actually search for this using Chrome. You go into your Chrome, you type in, recipe for spaghetti, for example. Or if you're in your news app and you find a cool article, you can bring up your Google Assistant and ask it, read me this article, and it will read it for you. So that's really, really nice if you're kind of busy, you're doing things around the house and you stumble upon this article, but oh no, I gotta go do this other thing, I don't know, in the kitchen or something. And so Google can just read it to you, which is nice. That's what I wanted to say regarding that for now.
Awesome. Thank you. Perfect. So we'll go ahead and do some questions here. Mickey, I do see that you have your hand raised. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hold on. Audio now unmuted.
Yeah, my biggest frustration with the keyboard on the iPhone is to be able to edit documents. And I was wondering if you guys have had much experience with editing, and can you move between? Can you maybe give an example of how you would copy and paste something, or can you tell me? Let's see. What the rotor? I know how the rotor works with the iPhone, and I'd like to understand how you would compare that. Like, say you're wanting to select words instead of characters, or select a paragraph instead of words.
Using the
Looks like you're done talking.
Using the pixel.
Right, to actually copy and paste it, right? Not just read
No
it.
lower.
Right.
Okay. So this is actually something that I've had a little bit of difficulty with Android. But if you are in an edit field, the easiest way I've found to do it is when you do that 3-finger swipe up or swipe down that I'd mentioned first you have to double tap and hold with 1 finger. That will bring up basically the select mode, I believe it is. And then you can use that 3-finger swipe up and swipe down to select which you would like to use, characters, words. And then you can use 1 finger to swipe up or swipe down and basically go through your selection.
Hold on. Audio now.
Okay, so then after that, so now you've selected something, and then if you want to put it somewhere else on your screen or in a document.
I think there is a copy button, but like I said, this is a feature that I specifically have struggled with.
Yeah.
Is there a way I can verify it and get back to you?
Yeah, I would like to spend some time understanding it, because to be honest with you, I think that's the biggest difference between the talkback and voiceover is everybody says, well, no, you don't have to use a rotor anymore. And that's not exactly the right way to put it, because you've got to, in either situation, you've got to select something. You've got to make choices. And so what happens with me is just normal editing. It's a real chore you select something and then you accidentally move to some other place because you're using gestures and you have actually selected something else you didn't even want to select. And I'm talking about.
Right. And like I said, Android it's not for, I mean, when I say it's not for everyone, what I mean is it's not going to be everyone's cup of tea.
Right. In that example, do they both act the same way, if you know what I'm trying to say? In other words, what I find is that when you're looking around the screen, it's very easy to get the phone to be focused in on. I'm talking about the iPhone, but think about what my question is as far as the Pixel. If you move your cursor around to another spot in your edit that you want to do something, insert, copy, whatever.
Right.
Is it easy or hard to not get confused about what you heard and then you actually are in the wrong spot on your screen? And
I find that Android is a little more stable when it comes to, editing and exploring and making sure you don't lose where you were. I struggle with some of the gestures for, say, like selecting text and things. That is why most of the time when I select text, I do that gesture I'd mentioned, the copy all.
11:17
and then I go through with characters and words and manually edit. But that is because I have extra dexterity challenges.
Right. That makes sense.
So in terms of the like editing the way you're talking about, let me do some research, Bob. If you could send what is your name? I'm sorry, my screen reader said it, but
that's okay. It's Mickey Quinzer. Bob can give you my email.
Yeah, if you could give me Mickey's information, Bob, I can follow up with her.
Will do, with him.
I'm so sorry.
No, that's fine. That'd be great. I would love to work on a future demo where we come up with a specific thing and we do it with both and try to describe what the differences are, if that's a possibility.
Yeah, that's a great idea. We can definitely talk about that, Ryan.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate your answering my questions.
And if I can jump in real quick and Mickey, for sure connect with Morgan. She's a wonderful, great instructor, and if you're having hurdles right now, what's great is we definitely do not know all the answers, but we can help together get you.
Yeah, that'd be fine. Anything like
that. To at least knowing that you're not alone, and we get together at trying to find how to best navigate that hurdle. Now, on that same topic, what I have found is with both phones, not using a rotor and trying to select something or edit, what you can do is find the word or the area or the paragraph, and you can double tap and hold on the second tap. So double tap and hold until you hear an audible sound. This is we'll talk specifically about the iPhone. That's what you have now. Double tap and hold. You're going to hear an audible tone. Once you hear that, lift your finger up. You will then find options that will pop up. You'll find select all, you'll find cut, paste. If there's something that's already been copied, you'll find copy and so forth. Then once you've selected one of those things, once you're in another area, or if you need to identify exactly, let's say it highlighted a sentence, but you just need to remove one word, then you can flick up or down to move the eye cursor to either expand what is highlighted or to minimize what is highlighted until you need to do whatever action is there, whether again it's copy, cut, paste, those types of things.
Audio.
Okay, that's a good tip. I appreciate that. Thank
Yeah,
you.
just to mess around with that. And then with the Pixel, what I have found is you don't need to do that double tap and hold. You can just locate by dragging your finger, locate, and then talk back will give you back that feedback. And then just tap, single tap on the word or text field that you'd like to edit, and then it'll be very similar to the directions that I've just explained with the iPhone.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, Nikki. And then again, connect with Morgan, and you all can come up with the best solution possible, but you'd be able to do it together. Tom, I see that you have your hand raised. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would say that that's probably the best presentation that we've had so far to have. I appreciate when you put things into perspective, and Ryan's vision is this way, and this is what he used it for, and but generally it can be done this way, and Morgan's saying that it can go both ways. In the days of old it was Apple, and this can be good for this and this can be good for that, and then to have two speakers also is good, so we're not getting stood up with two separate agendas, I think is good. So it's not just tag teaming on each other and then conversation just gets too big and down rabbit holes. So I appreciate that. Having said that, for one of my jobs, I need to, and thank you, Ryan, for saying that you can, put something as small as the printed time in large print, because I'm looking at that all day long. And I don't need the specifics now, but like I have to operate in a few different time zones. So that gets more confusing. Do you think that there's a way to make the time in large print in a couple different time zones?
That is a great question. I would not be surprised if you could, but I can't tell you that right away. But before we end today, I'll let you know whether we can or not. That would be really, really neat if you could. If you could, there may be, again, there's only so much screen real estate, right? So let's say that if you're having one time zone, it can be that, 2 inches by 3 inches, like large clock in the center of the screen. Perfect. I imagine that if you needed 2 or more, then you may end up dropping that real estate down a little bit, or the
Sure.
clock.
And I don't need the specifics now when I have an elderly iPhone that needs to be
Sure.
upgraded. But
Elderly.
I'm dealing with 3 time zones, but to have larger and to have the 3 there so then, because I'm checking it 20, 30 times a day, an inch from my face. So
That would be really cool.
It wouldn't surprise me that there are several apps in the App Store that will do that.
True. Yeah. To find one that's accessible also is a little tricky, but absolutely Bob is correct. So if it's not native to the phone, then we could potentially find one on the App Store that is can do what we're asking it to do, and B, preferably accessible to where we can manipulate the size of the clock itself and potentially the look as well, because sometimes it's bubble letters or some fancy font or something that just makes it harder to identify as well. So
All done.
not a
Audio
huge
now.
deal, but thank you for bringing it to the attention that you can make that larger. So just to make it more is, because some people might have to operate in different time zones. So I greatly appreciate it.
Totally. And then and I imagine you know this already, but it's worth stating is you can always ask any of the assistants and they'll be able to, what time is it in Tokyo? What time is it, blah, blah, blah. Again,
I'm doing that all day long.
I bet.
So
Yeah.
because,
Okay,
yeah.
good. Awesome. Well, thanks, Tom. Christy, I see that you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we
Yep.
can.
Awesome. So I'm actually a longtime Google Pixel 4a, and I wanted to comment on the first comment for editing and selecting.
Yes, please.
If you use your swiping motions to do like between lines, words, paragraphs, and if you use three fingers and tap the front of your screen, another menu will come up and it'll say last or copy last spoken phrase. Or you can also hide your screen on that screen too. But I just wanted to say it's just really easy to edit documents and stuff if you figure out how to swipe through lines, paragraphs, words, and then that's just an easy way for you to copy your text.
That's
That's
perfect.
That's a great
Thank
rep.
you.
And then I have a question about Lookout.
Yeah, for sure.
The feed picture that you were describing today, I haven't used it. I love Google Lookout. It rivals InVision. And because I use that like way more than InVision, I feel like it's a really good layout. But for the feed portion, if you want to take a picture, do you know if you can save that to your phone library, or do you have to send it like via email or whatever? Because I know that you can keep some of the documents for 24 hours in just the Google library and then they delete.
So with this particular one, I think that it gave me a notice. Let me unlock. I think that it gave me a notice that it didn't store the photos. If I recall correctly, there was the pop-up stating that information, but we deal with pop-ups all the time. So I'm pretty sure that it doesn't save, and I don't even think for the 24 hours didn't save the image itself, if that answered your question.
It did. Yeah, I know like if I'm cooking a recipe, I use the document portion and I'm able to exit out of Lookout for the time being and I can come back and I can read the recipe or swipe through it. And I'm like, ooh, that'd be great to be able to save pictures if I wanted a perfect picture.
I think, and I can actually try that right now.
Settings accessibility. Android
So I think if we
look messages. Lookout images mode.
So let's take picture.
Button. Take photo.
So
recent media item detail.
I'm going to close out the app and let's say that I need to answer a phone call. If I open Lookout back up,
Lookout. Recent media
it's still on the photo. So as long as I don't exit out of that photo and as long as I don't close out the app, that photo is still there.
Okay.
So
Perfect. I'll have to figure out the sharing motions because I know I can share things to my email. I wonder if there's a way to link it to photos.
Reading tool settings button. Upload.
There is. There's an upload.
Ah, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, it's on the bottom right-hand side, just a little bit above the play it and pause and direction because because it has the text identifier, you can actually, instead of if you're not using TalkBack, you can control what it's reading or the feedback it's giving to you with arrows down at the bottom to move forward or previous, and play and pause because it'll just read it to you. You do have that option to upload, and then you have some more tools on the side. But I think that will be really neat. The other option that you may want to look into is potentially using like ChatGPT, the voice, because that you can just have a conversation with it, and it very well can.
The screen off.
You can. You don't have Bixby. Let's see. Sorry, I was trying to. That's for Samsung. So you would be able to ask it questions, just having a conversation with it, and you'd be like, "How high do you heat the oven? What's a good substitute for margarine? What's a gluten-free option, so forth." So ChatGPT actually is a really good, helpful, what I have found with recipes itself, helpful tool.
I'll have to look into that too, because I know I use Be My Eyes. I go between Lookout and the Be My Eyes AI portion, and just the both together makes my life happy.
Exactly. And Be My Eyes, you don't even have to download the ChatGPT, because Be My Eyes is already, it was the first app that or at least the first accessible app that was integrating ChatGPT, which is really, really cool.
Ryan, sorry, I'm
Yeah.
gonna comment in for a second. So
Please.
actually for Be My Eyes, the Be My AI portion, yes, it does integrate ChatGPT, but that's only for the pictures. So if you have a recipe like in front of you, that's great. You can take a picture of it. But I would still recommend downloading the regular ChatGPT app, because in this you can actually, like Ryan said, you can chat with it in a voice mode, and you can ask it, hey, can you look up for me online a recipe for, again, spaghetti, right? And it will locate a recipe for you. It will read you the instructions, and you can go through it step by step without having to deal with aiming your camera, making sure you have everything positioned right. And so that's just another avenue. I would always recommend downloading it as well. Just another tool in the toolbox.
Yep. Thank you.
Well, and let me just mention another one, a newer one that's out there. It's called PickyBot. It's PICCYBOT. Now, when you hear it, your screen reader is going to call it Pixie. It's going to call it PixieBot, but it's PickyBot, and that'll audio describe like video to you. So you could take a video and it'll describe it to you. Same thing with photos. The thing with PickyBot is it I don't understand their contractual arrangements, but they use like 3 separate databases of knowledge out there. So it's not just like Seeing AI or the open AI. They're able to use all 3 of them, and so you get much more detailed information back.
And you can change between the 3 that you like. For example, mine, I do have this app as well. Mine is set to ChatGPT right now, but I could change it if I wanted to change it to, say, Gemini or Claude 3 or Llama, and they're all going to give me slightly different responses in the way that they word it. The one thing I wanted to mention, thank you so much for bringing PickyBot up, Bob. I didn't even think about that. And yes, I say Pixie. I had no clue it was picky.
It's from picture.
Yeah, it makes sense. It is, so if you have the free version, I believe it can record and scan up to 30 seconds of video. However, if you have the premium version, it now can do up to a minute. Their premium offerings is very nice too, because it is a one-time, like a lifetime subscription. You pay once and that's it, as far as I know.
Yes,
and I
it's
think
like $20.
Yeah. So it's worth it, I think.
And it also has a feature where you can adjust the personality, they call it. And so it'll give you back this really
I'm so sorry, everybody. I have to stop my camera.
Okay. You can change the personality and it'll give you a really conversational style of narration. It'll say, "Oh, that looks like a very cozy, inviting environment that I'd like to sit there and read a good book," or whatever. But you can change that and get it back to just normal everyday things. So
that's cool.
Ryan, I had one question for you. So is
yes.
the lookup, is that similar to the old Google goggles?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah. Lookout. Okay. I believe, and then honestly, Christy, I think you're one of the only ones that actually uses the Pixel from many, many years, from several generations ago. But to my knowledge, yeah, it is, and it's way better. And I mean, it had to compete with like Seeing AI and Envision. And I'm with Christy. I think that it's more user friendly, honestly, and it does really, really. The tools that are available are really helpful. There aren't ones that are, mm, in my opinion, needed as much. So it kind of weeds out some of the unnecessary things, and it's easier to navigate with a screen reader.
Great. Well, Ryan and Morgan, I want to thank you both for the presentation today. It was very informative. You've almost got me convinced to give up my iPhone and go back to a Google. I had a Android before the iPhone, but it sounds like they're very compatible now, and so I do appreciate you both being here and explaining everything to us. I'm going to go ahead and end the recording, and then people can stay on and ask additional questions, because I think there's a couple of hands up. But